website and on a bulletin board as provided in the public notice. The public may access the meeting online and via telephone. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting. This is required by the right to know law. Bill, would you like to start?
Campbell, I'm my study.
Pam?
Pam Chudham, I'm here alone.
Jay?
Jay Myers, I'm alone.
Maura?
Maura Fay, I'm alone.
Julie?
Julie Gilman, Select Board Representative, and I am alone.
And I'm John Merkel, Chair, and I am alone. Okay. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of March 16th?
I did. I had one down in the second page, I think, when talking. I thought Liz did a nice job of putting everybody's comments in so you can pick them up. And Janelle Chandler had a good comment, but the last sentence in that paragraph says, by them choosing to be a steward of it would involve them in upgrading it, making it more efficient. And I wasn't sure what that referred to. And I thought maybe just getting rid of that sentence would not lose the tone of her comments, of Janelle's comments. But I didn't know what that sentence referred to, being a steward of it and would involve upgrading. So that's just a comment. Otherwise, I thought they're great.
You want to remove that sentence?
I think it could be done without losing the what she was saying, her point of her paragraph.
Okay. Liz, will you want to strike that?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any other comments or changes? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Bill?
Yes.
Julie?
I have to abstain. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting.
Oh, you did miss the last meeting, yes. Maura?
Aye.
Pam, you were gone too.
I wasn't here, so I abstained too.
Jay?
Aye.
Okay, we passed the minutes. Anything more on the Black Heritage Pocket Park, Maura?
No updates at this time. Still, Renee has been speaking with the select board, and I think she's still working on some timeline stuff around Swayze Park's decision to maintain closed vehicles or not, and the PEA's plan with the DTC building that may impact kind of what the park ends up looking like. So,
I did see the plan that they showed the select board, I think it was, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. One little safety thing they have to watch for, but I thought it was nice. Let's start anyway. It's good.
The plan is looking really nice. Jen Martell, who's on the planning board, is a landscape designer, so she was able to throw together, a really nice looking kind of mock-up. So it gives a good sense of what it could look like.
Good.
I'm not familiar with what talks are going on about the DTC building. Will the Pocket Park go in that vicinity of Swayze?
So it would be in that little section of Swayze that's right next to the DTC building. And so the question is right now, whether there will be a way to access from kind of that side of the fence if PEA ends up taking that building down, replacing it with something else, and kind of how that might impact access to the park or the park's design even. So just kind of wanting to hold off on a couple of decisions there until they know what that may end up looking like.
Yeah, I've got to apologize. I'm not familiar with the design that Jen put forth But it sounds like at the gateway of the Parkway, that is a really wonderful location. Aside from some of the other discussions of where it might go, I like the idea that it would be close to town and sort of at the gateway and not sort of distant from foot traffic and such.
Yeah, I think the visibility of that little section of the park is a really nice, asset to the idea of wanting to make it a more visible part of Exeter's history.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that's good comment. And thank you, Maura. Keep us informed.
Yeah, will do.
We want to continue discussion on the neighborhood heritage area. I know, Maura, you've been actively trying to get things moving, and it's been encouraging, I think, but there's still a lot of concerns and a lot of confusion.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of meetings now with the folks who said they were interested in being part of that steering committee to pull together some guidelines. And so, I think we're making some progress. It does feel like there's still some reticence around attempting this, but I do feel like we've made a couple of good steps in that as a group, we decided to look at the draft guidelines that are provided in that DHR handbook. And there are two sections mainly that deal with the actual guidelines. So the whole sort of model proposal includes, opening information about the neighborhood, why it's important, what the history of the neighborhood is and such, which can be fleshed out later. But there are two main parts that deal directly with the guidelines that I suggested we all sort of, throw our own ideas at and discuss as a group. And then what we decided to do as of our last meeting last week was to put together a survey that included, and I think there's probably 8 potential regulations that could be included. And so for each of those 8 kind of subsections to include a question that will go out to the entire neighborhood that says, are you in favor of the guidelines including, you can't demolish your house? Are you in favor of the guidelines including, any restrictions on window replacement? And if so, give a couple of options to what that might look like so that people can respond to each of those subsections individually. And then hopefully we can get a much better sense of kind of the feelings of the neighborhood at large. And go from there. If we give, an opportunity to respond to 8 different potential guidelines, and there are 3 or 4 of them that everybody seems to think this would be good, this would be a thing that we would want guidelines on, and the rest everybody says no, this is not something we care to regulate, then that will be some good guidance going forward.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
So that's where we're at.
the more
It sounds a lot better than I had thought might happen, so wonderful.
Maura, do we have emails or contact materials on pretty much everybody in the
I
area?
think we're pretty close. Yeah. I think between, the Locust Street kind of side, Park Street side, and then like the Forest Walnut Street side, between those 2 lists, I know there's a couple of kind of community email lists that people have kept track of. I think we can get pretty much everybody. I can go through and see, maybe try to tabulate a list of which households we do and don't have contact info for. We did talk about kind of how to do the survey. Some people are going to prefer a piece of paper that they can circle yes or no on. Some people are going to prefer an online survey. So we thought about doing both of those options, and then people can just respond whichever way makes the most sense to them.
And once you centered on these recommendations, going out and talking to, having the 6 or 8 people that are on the committee go out and talk.
Sorry, Bill, you're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Well, it doesn't always work, the space bar business.
I know.
Is there any thought in the group of going out and talking to other people once you get sort of an idea of what kind of a document you want to come up with? That maybe with those 4 or 5 or whatever things that sometimes going face to face is a little better than just going email. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. That was brought up. It did sound like people were interested in, just checking in with a few neighbors that they, know pretty well, and just saying, here's what this is about. So yeah, that could certainly be part of it. I think one of the bigger questions that is still unanswered is, let's say we do a survey, hopefully we'll get some responses. I don't have a sense of, how many responses we might get. But to try to figure out how representative those responses are of sort of the wider neighborhood, let's say it's 15% of the people we've reached out to reply in some kind, can we sort of take that as a broader consensus, or do we, how do we deal with that issue of, response percentage versus actual number of households and things like that?
Last October or whenever it was, there were 2 or 3 people who seemed to be definitely against it. I think we could go to them specifically and say, here are the 8 things, and how do you feel about this? Mm-hmm. Would you really fight it if we said you can't do this, that, or the other?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. A couple of the folks who were very concerned about it are actually on this subcommittee, so that's a help.
Yes. Okay.
So I think that will help. But I think you're right. Of the handful of folks who had serious concerns, I think it would be great to be able to approach them specifically and say, here's what we're thinking about. How would this feel to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I think some of the people that have had some strong objections early on are actually thinking about how this might work.
Who are the neighbors that you've been meeting with? Who's making up this committee?
So the people who've been interested in being involved are Janelle and Joel Schonder, who had some pretty big concerns, and so it's great that they want to be involved. It's been really nice to hear their perspectives. Carol Waters and Esther Olson Murphy, who live just up Oak Street from me, and then Ann Kenny, who's on Walnut Street. Okay. So we've kind of got both sides of the neighborhood represented, which I think is nice. We don't really have anybody from down sort of like Cass Green Street area, unfortunately, but hopefully that won't be too big a barrier. So basically everybody who said they wanted to be involved is involved.
Good.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I have to excuse myself for just a half minute to help get my wife back in the house.
That's important.
See you in a minute.
Well, I had a question about the communication. I think it was from Janelle, with all the questions about the planning board's interaction and the scheduling of things that were. I can see the concern in them. Timing wise, it's a layer that they're not used. The folks in the neighborhood are not used to. And the planning board can give us a certain amount of leeway, but it all still has to go back to the planning board for approval. And I think it's going to be a struggle to get used to. The first couple of times somebody tries to do something. And in fact, have we actually talked to the planning board yet? I can't remember.
Well, I know John Gruder, who's our planning board rep, has been involved in a bunch of these discussions, but I don't know that we've talked to the planning board as a whole.
Yeah, we should get...
No, we haven't.
Yeah, we should do that sooner rather than later. It might be that they just don't want to take this on. What if that happens, then there it is.
I thought we had a projected date with which we were going to present this to the planning board. This was going to be out in the future several months, but I thought we had already sort of gave them a heads up that this is what's happening. Certainly with John being on the commission, that he's been our liaison, but didn't we have,
We did talk about it, I remember that, but I think we need John to actually tell them, I need to talk to you as a group about this. And maybe some of us go at that time.
Yeah, I remember we talked about it, but I don't know if we ever landed on a date to actually go and speak to the planning board.
No, because we did actually want to hear more from the neighborhood about because if there's very little interest, there's no reason to bring it up at the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe what makes sense for a timeline is to try to get this neighborhood survey out and done and tabulated, so we do know whether people are interested in it overall or whether people think it's a terrible idea. And then at that point, maybe try to get on the schedule for the planning board a few months later.
More
That makes sense.
about the conversations that you've been having, if people understand the difference between the group that puts together what are the purpose, but what are the things that we're interested in seeing that would affect the heritage neighborhood as opposed to the official neighborhood area committee that makes its case before the planning board.
Yeah, and actually that I think is kind of one of the points of concern is that, it feels like once it gets into the planning board's hands, then the neighborhood may give up some of its power or lose some of its say in the process. And so, understanding that that is the requirement, is that it lives kind of within the planning board, hopefully the way we write the guidelines can be that, one of the things we would have to do is determine a number of people on the neighborhood advisory board. And I think it's a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 7. And then I think, and I hope that what we can also write into the guidelines is that either all of them must be residents of the neighborhood or, a majority, 3 of the 5 or whatever that looks like for the number that gets chosen, so that it is still a body that truly does represent the residents of the neighborhood. And as long as that can happen, I think that people will be pretty comfortable with it. But certainly there is a concern that there is this possibility that, the planning board can approve this, can say, yes, let's go with it, and then could theoretically appoint an advisory board that doesn't include anybody who lives in the neighborhood.
Like,
I know that the handbook makes recommendations of backgrounds that we should consider that are people that may not live in the neighborhood, because not every neighborhood has, excuse me, John, an architect in it.
Right.
So there are considerations like that that we have to decide on, clarify.
Yeah.
I would think that we could maybe put something in there that would give the neighborhood advisory board the ability to bring in consultants.
Any board, any board or commission can have a subcommittee that brings in people from outside. It doesn't have to be a subcommittee of the board itself. So if you know somebody who's a specialist in something, we don't want to lock them out. We want their participation in any of the boards, and it may be done through a subcommittee. So if we have a committee of 7 and it's all residents of the area, which would be nice, and they want to understand construction detail or something like that, bringing in a subcommittee for construction detail can be made up of whoever the board decides, the committee decides.
I think the committee should decide who they want on the committee, but hopefully somebody from this board would be on it too, so that would help a little bit in their discussions. And somebody who's also kind of, I think anybody on this board is also familiar with how things work in town a little bit, and that's always helpful.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Esther Olson Murphy, who's also in this kind of ad hoc subcommittee, is on the zoning board as well. So I think she brings a really important, perspective and knowledge of kind of town workings as well, which is great.
That is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mara, I'm gonna be responding per item on the two paragraphs that you sent us in the email
Okay, great.
that appear in the guide. I'm gonna do that. I think it would be helpful. Is there any more discussion on this? We did have I lost you for a short period of time. We ran out of our 40 minutes.
Yes, we did. The last time we didn't get kicked off, so I didn't make us two separate meeting links the second time. And of course, I needed them. So yeah, we did miss you for a few minutes.
Well, I had to put the app on my phone.
Oh.
Get back in. Yeah. But is there any more discussion on this? I would welcome some representation from Cass Street. I
think that would be wonderful.
That bothers me.
I'm going over to the Historical Society this afternoon. Let me ask Barbara if she can strong arm someone. I'm sure she has enough herself, but somebody must be willing to do that.
Yeah.
I had a question about the demolition part of it. I mean, is there a conflict with what we have already in our zoning ordinance that the Heritage Commission already does this demo piece? Would we be doing it twice?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure. I mean, I think that this might supersede the Heritage Commission's review, but I honestly don't know. Now this is the part I'm not sure if you were there for, John. One of the things that we were sort of talking about would be helpful is getting a legal review on kind of how this would dovetail with zoning board, planning board, heritage, so that we can all understand, which powers this group could have and which powers it wouldn't have. So that would be a question that would be good to know.
That could also be something that's written into our the plan for it. What the powers or issues that the neighborhood area is part of, and just refer from there to the Heritage Commission, because the Heritage Commission has a very short time frame to react to things, so it shouldn't hold up the process of other things that are going along. I think that would be the easiest thing to do rather than have two demolition reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I will see about getting legal representation.
Thank you.
Are we having, I'm only seeing, let's see, we say it says that we have 10 participants, but I'm only seeing 8.
1, 2, 3.
John, if you click on the panel, the participants at the bottom, and it opens up that little box, you'll see panelists, but then you'll see attendees.
Oh, so we have actual people listening to us.
We have actual people watching our meeting, Pam. It's so exciting.
Amazing. That never happens. They must have made a mistake.
No, they really want to be here and listen to us, I guess.
We have a question from, I believe this is Eileen Flockhart.
That never happens.
Eileen?
I think, does Bob have to give her permission to talk or something? How does that work?
Yeah, I think so.
There we go. And then unmute yourself.
Okay. How's that working?
You did it.
Okay. I had a question about the demolition situation. The Heritage Commission, is charged with noticing that and alerting somebody. Whether it's the Heritage Commission or the neighborhood group, what kind of muscle or power would either group have to say, okay, once they're notified that something is going to be torn down and the neighborhood doesn't like it, who can do anything about it?
Well, both groups are advisory. The biggest thing that the Heritage Commission can do is call a public hearing if we feel that demolition is out of place or will somehow affect the heritage of the town. Then we can hold a public hearing to get the input from the neighbors, and we have 30 days in which to act on that. It doesn't have to take 30 days. It's as soon as we can do it. But then if we have the area, then they would be notified about it. So we'd have more participation in the demolition review than we currently do. But again, it's just advisory. The Heritage Commission just advises the planning board or the zoning board, and the neighborhood area committee would also only be advisory.
You know, we just did that. The 110 High Street,
That's right.
which the hospital wanted to tear down for.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Julie, that was one of the legal questions. So the way that the DHR document it looks like, if the Neighborhood Heritage Area Advisory Board has declared that the guideline says, a house shall not be demolished unless it, meets these criteria. Is that truly the power that the board would have or not? So that was the question that we wanted to run by the town's attorney.
Yeah, that's a good question, because right now the Heritage Commission is restricted to buildings that are 50 years or older.
Right.
So we'd have to, I can't tell you off the top of my head if that affects the Heritage Area Committee, but I still think that because they're both advisory, that in the committee's handbook, or whatever we're going to call the guiding document, instead of doing double duty on the demolition review, have the Heritage Commission do the demolition review, but the notice of it should go out broader. Right now, we don't even contact abutters, do we, on a demolition review?
No.
Yeah, we
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do. Really? Yes, we do.
I mean, I got noticed about 110, obviously, because it was across the street. And the other, I rallied the other neighbors up because the other abutters are the hospital and Planned Parenthood building, so it didn't work too well.
Never had anybody but the owners come to our demolition review.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. I remember when the Academy wanted to tear down the Tattersall house? We got a lot of people for that one.
That was in the historic district.
Correct.
So that has a different jurisdiction. So I guess my question, Julie, and everybody, is that if this becomes a subgroup of the planning board and the guiding documents say that, no house shall be demolished unless such and such, and the planning board, let's say the advisory group recommends to the planning board, no, this house won't get demolished. We won't give it our approval. And the planning board agrees with that. And the planning board also says, no, based on these criteria, it doesn't qualify for demolition. Will they have that power? That's the real question based on the enabling legislation.
Yes, they would.
They would.
Because they are the guiding regulatory board. They take our advice, or we give them advice, and they have the authority to take it and do with it, work with it. So, I think.
Okay.
Which they did right on the corner of my street, right on the corner of South Street, where they tore down that cute little garage, which is now a parking lot. Even though we brought all kinds of, no, never mind. But yes, we lose a lot. But we win some.
Well, are there any more questions from our visitors? I guess not.
No, Maura, I'd like to talk to you about the legal questions that have come up, like, what does the planning board do? Can the zoning board override? Which actually they can, but just how to get this document set up to be of most use to the neighborhood.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so Maura, I'll be joining you your next meeting.
Okay, great.
When that is, it hasn't been set yet, has it?
No, we actually did set it. I'm going to look up the date. I think we're doing it not next week, but the following week. So we've got it set for, pretty sure it was Wednesday the 5th. And of course, my calendar's not cooperating with me right now. So,
I don't have it.
but anyway, yes, I'm pretty sure we decided on Wednesday the 5th. We had originally thought about like every 2 weeks, but since next week will be vacation week for school, and we all wanted a little bit of time to sort of think about the, the guidelines and the survey questions. 3 weeks felt like a better time.
And that's at 5:30.
5:15. We're going to do 5:15.
Okay. Good. All right. I will see you then.
Yes, and I will send out the invite.
Is there any other business? I would like to, we mentioned 110 High Street. It looks like we're getting some real progress on it now.
They're doing very well.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to them lately, but they're working there almost every day, and they've been back to the historic district once or twice. They want to put a fence up, and they talked about that. And, so they're really making some progress.
That's good to hear.
Even getting the roof on was a big, made it look about 10 times better.
Absolutely.
Well, does anybody else have any other comments or any other business?
John, you asked me about the energy minute that's supposed to happen tomorrow with the Earth Day. I did not follow up on that, but I still have time. What I was going to talk about was just the adaptive reuse of buildings and why keeping an older structure is better than tearing down a new one, and also replacement windows.
Yay!
Just a little bit, why these things are more sustainable and can work on your energy consumption because you're not causing new wood to be used. You're using the existing stock, and which is actually, if older, much better insulation than some of the newer wood is. So it's just those few things.
You got time to get that clip in?
I will see what I can do.
I hate to break it to you, it's already out. But they plan on doing some more ones in the future, so definitely that sounds like along the lines of what they were looking for. So for the next one, definitely can get that in there.
No, thanks, Bob. It just flew out of my mind. I've had a lot of conflicts with the State House schedule.
No worries, a lot going on.
Wow. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Wait, I have one other thing. Withdraw your motion. There's a piece of legislation that has made it through the House and Senate now that I worked with Pat Abrami on, and it is to municipally owned property. If a select board wants to in any way get rid of, sell, demolish, buy, they would get advice from the Planning Board, the Heritage Commission, the Conservation Commission, and the Historic District Commission if necessary. There have been a couple of cases, one in Stratham and one in Rye, where town buildings were just demolished because the select said, we don't need that anymore. And there was no public input until it was done. So in order to protect that from happening and having a select board who don't have these kind of backgrounds of any of those different boards and commissions making a decision about how to treat a property or a building, get some advice. So.
Okay, excellent.
Good.
So now you can make your motion.
Okay. Again, move to adjourn.
And I'll second it.
Okay, by roll call, Bill,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Jay,